please subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up, hit the notification, get the ring, as that way I get paid. Okay, we have 110 people who have signed up to this station. We are growing every single day. We just need you to, again, friends, enemies, we don't care who signs up, just sign up and hopefully enjoy what you're going to see. Okay, here we go. So we are in Ein Yaakov, and we are in Talmud Shabbat 54b3. We were just talking last time about if you do not protest when you see bad, wrong things happening, then, and you would have the ability to stop that person or those people from doing these things, if they would listen to you, and you don't protest, well, then you get you get punished along with them, if you will. Okay, so and it says you get actually punished for them, because when you did not protest, they assumed that it was all right to do it, so they're doing it with permission. Okay, as opposed to the person who protests, then they can't say, well, we didn't know. The example would be, again, when somebody's driving on Shabbat, you have to once in a while put up a protest, say, it's wrong to drive on Shabbat. So the person says, how will I get to shul? Is it better? And all the questions that goes with that. But nonetheless, it's important that everybody knows that the halacha would say one thing, what we actually do in practice is going to be something else, but you have to level the protest every once in a while. Okay? So otherwise, again, it's taken to be allowed. So then he says, Rav Papa, an addendum to this was V'hanei debei racial galuta nitpasu al kuli alma. And these officials of the house of Exilach are punished for the transgression of the entire Jewish world if they fail to protest. So he said that the entire world means the entire Jewish nation. And the Gemara refers to someone like the king or the Nasi, the head of the nation, who has the power to protest because the people fear and obey him. Well, again, it's a very simple rule. If I have the ability to protest and people are going to listen, and I do not, then I am taking on their sins. And how do I know this? Ki haida amar Rav Chanina, and this is like what Rav Chanina said. My dichtiv, what's the verse that proves this? It says, Hashem mishpat yavo im ziknei amo v'sarav. That Hashem will enter into judgment with the elders of his people and his rulers. Im sarim chatu, if the rulers sinned, so then so again, if the rulers sin, what is why are the elders? The elders are, remember, and it doesn't really mean old people. It means zekon chachma according to the rabbis, the ones who have acquired wisdom. So we're talking about the elders who are learned in Torah, and he said, Rashi says, it refers to the members of the Sanhedrin. So and so the Gemara answers, Ela ema al zakenim shalomichu besarim. Rather, say that the Torah or the Scripture is speaking about elders who did not protest against the sinful nations, sinful actions of the leaders, and were therefore brought to judgment by Hashem. So here you have to have the Sanhedrin who sees the leaders doing wrong. They have to tell the leaders, you're doing wrong. Again, a macha has to be set up. So Archko says, the commentators ask, how did Rabbi Chanina know that the elders mentioned in this verse did not also sin? The Maharsha explains that while it is true that some elders, Torah scholars, did sin before the destruction of the first temple, nevertheless, in this passage of Isaiah, the prophet speaks only about the sins of the rulers. Rabbi Chanina thus infers from our verse that our verse refers to those elders who did not sin. Okay, so that's what we're getting at. So again, if you see leaders, well, you know, it's interesting. You have in our system, if the Supreme Court would see that either the legislative or the executive branch is doing something wrong, it is up to them to, and by the way, the same thing for all the other branches. Okay, it would be for those people to say, to issue the macha, to issue the protest. Because if they don't, it's as if they're agreeing with it. That's what's going on. Again, whenever I don't issue a protest, it's as if I am agreeing with it, and the people therefore will assume that it is fine. So they'll do it. Okay? That's what the whole section is dealing with. So it says, Rav Yehuda Havi Yatav Kameid Shmuel. So Rav Yehuda was once sitting before Shmuel to observe him judging the cases of law. Atai Hahim Itatas, a certain woman entered into the court, V'kaid savcha kameh, and cried out before him about an injustice committed against her. V'lo haya mashgach ba, but Shmuel paid no attention to her. Okay, v'lo amalei lo savar lemitmar. Rav Yehuda therefore said to Shmuel, does the master not hold that otem azno mizak adal gam hu yikra v'lo ye'aneh, that he who closes his ears to the outcry of the poor, he too will call and not be answered? So the Maharsha asked a question. He said, how could Rav Yehuda ask whether Shmuel holds like the verse? Of course he must. Rather, Rav Yehuda should have phrased his question differently. Does the verse not say? So the Maharsha explains that this verse refers primarily to one who refuses to give charity. Rav Yehuda therefore asked Shmuel, does the master not hold that the verse refers also to one who refuses to judge the case of a pauper? So that's what he was asking, because really it's a chutzpah, that Rav Yehuda is sitting to hear Shmuel speak, and so Rav Yehuda was not, I'm guessing it's not as great as Shmuel, so therefore you can ask a question like, what does the pasuk mean, and so on and so forth, but to ask, what do you not hold? You don't agree with the pasuk? You don't agree with this? So that's a bit of a chutzpah. So that's no good. So he says, Amalei Shinana. So Shmuel replied to him, sharp one. And again, Shmuel often called Rabbi Yehuda by the sobriquet because the latter possessed sharp analytical ability. He says, Reishach bekrire, your head is in cool water. Reisha de reishach b'chamimi, it is your head that is in hot water, which means, Rav Shmuel replied, I who am your head, your teacher, will not be scalded. However, Ma'ukva, who is the president of the Beit Din, is head both you and me, and he will be scalded by hot water, since he is the one with the power to help this woman. So he's throwing it away and saying, it's neither one of us is going to be affected, it's really Mar Ukva who's going to be the problem. So Hai Yativ Mar Ukva av Beitim, before Mar Ukva was sitting and judging cases as the president of the rabbinical court, and so the ultimate responsibility is his. Dichtiv, as it says, Beit David Ko Amar Hashem Dino Laboke Mishpat V'Had Silu Gazum Yad Oshek Penteitze Ke'esh Chamati Va'ara Ve'em Echabe Mifnei Roa Melehem, as it says in Jeremiah, O house of David, thus says Hashem, execute judgment in the morning, and rescue the robbed from the hand of the oppressor, lest my wrath go forth like fire and consume that none can quench it, because of the evil of the deeds, etc. So he says, from this verse, Shmuel argued, we learn that Hashem punishes only those who have the power to judge. So I don't have the power to judge, Shmuel is arguing. Mar Ukva was descended from King David, hence since the verse which was addressed to us, David speaks of consuming fire, Shmuel's reply to Rav Yehuda was couched in the metaphor of scalding. So that's how he gets out of it, because really what Shmuel should have seemingly answered this woman who was talking about injustice, and he said, it's not me, it's Mar Ukva. Don't come to me. So again, you're seeing two things. One is potentially, you're seeing that Rav Yehuda is not, he's asking Shmuel, why aren't you speaking up? And so Shmuel is saying, because the president is here. When the president is here, you don't speak. Oh. That's what, he's the one who should have been answering her claim. It's not befitting for me to speak in front of the president, in front of the Nasi. Yeah.
Is that like the example of like when somebody comes and asks a question and the rabbi of the congregation is there, the students shouldn't answer? Correct.
Or if somebody asks your father even, right, and you're there, or he asks a question that really is your father's answer. Right. If the answer is for you to jump in front, there'll be a lack of kavod. So so it's anything like that, it's showing a deep By the way, it also would be, and I've said this many times, let's say when I go to different shuls, even though I'm a rabbi, so people will say to me, well, Rabbi, what's the halacha? And I always point, go to your rabbi. Go to the rabbi to be at the front of the guy, front of the room who gets paid to answer those questions. I don't get paid to answer that. Yeah, but you're a rabbi. You know, I may know. I may know, I may not know. It doesn't really matter what I know. I'm a rabbi. He's the rabbi. Okay, so whenever you walk into a shul, you have to default to the Rav of the shul. And by the way, and let's say you have the Rav of the shul, let's say Rabbi, I'm going to use names here. Let's say Rabbi First comes to South Bend. Okay, Rabbi First is a big rabbi in Chicago. Okay, he's known as one of the leading authorities. And Rabbi Bowman would be there, I would be there, and pick on any other rabbi you want in this town. All three, but I'm picking on two of us because we run shuls. Fine. So Rabbi First is there, and somebody asks a question. Who should we default to?
Does it matter which shul you're in? Or
No.
Rabbi First?
Rabbi First is, he's right there with us.
Like the Nasi example.
Say that again?
The example of the president of the Nasi.
Correct. So Rabbi First, we should both defer to Rabbi First. Because Rabbi First is, if he decides that we should answer, that's up to him. But we don't have the right at that point, if you follow that sort of a logic, he's a greater Rav than us. And he's certainly more well known than me. I won't speak to the Rabbi Bowman. He's certainly well known more than, although I'm in so certain places, but I would have to assume that Rabbi First is much more known than me, and he has much more knowledge than me. Okay, so I would be an idiot to speak in front of him in that sort of a manner. But but that's the point here. So if somebody of greater power who is seen that way, that's it. At the same time, you should know that some rabbis who retire from their positions, and they become the rabbi emeritus again. That just means that they're sitting in the shul, and they even get the kisei kavod, the throne of honor, as it were, in the front. When the questions come, that rabbi normally will defer to the rabbi of the shul. I have to assume that Rabbi Schwartz would always defer to Rabbi Cohen.
I think so.
Always, because it wasn't his shul. Even though, again, he is what, I mean, let him have it for Shlema, but he was acknowledged as a posek, as a decisive of law. But it's still in somebody else's shul. So even though, again, he got the front of the room and everything else, I'm pretty sure he never wanted to answer the question, always deferred to the Rav of the shul. Showing, first of all, just respect for the leadership. But any time that Rabbi Cohen would have thrown it to Rabbi Schwartz, Rabbi Schwartz would have certainly answered. You know.
Well, I know that in Rabbi Cohen's done this. If any Rav of a shul, if somebody comes and asks a general theoretical question that is maybe not so simple at its base, you know, the rabbi certainly would come back and say, you know, you just asked me something theoretical, we can study it. I'm not going to answer a question that, it's, you know, because you're going to give a sock on something that doesn't even exist.
Correct.
So what's the situation if you're a person is in somebody else's shul and you see the Rav or any other rabbi that might be sitting there, it could even be in this town, and you have a general question, maybe a general kashrus question, just in general. What if this and or that?
You're saying theoretical.
Yeah. Would that rabbi be comfortable in answering that, or would he still more correctly refer you to your Rav for where it's not a really specific existing situation?
You have to play that by ear. I would play that by ear. Yeah. And the first question you have to ask is this theoretical?
Why is he asking you the question?
Right. Why are you asking? And so if the guy says theoretical, so you say theoretically anything can happen. What do you want? No, but we don't answer theoretical. We don't like to answer theoretical questions because the world of theory is just that.
That he's going to take that as a set answer for what may come tomorrow or next week.
So that's what I'm saying. We don't like to answer theoreticals. As a matter of fact, the Gemara constantly goes through theoreticals, and it comes out with teku. Teku is we don't know.
You know, it would almost be like any one of us walking up to a bona fide judge in a court in town, a civil court, civil criminal court, whatever he's saying. What if so and so? And he may, maybe give you some general statements of law, but a very specific case, I'm sure he's not going to try to adjudicate it. Because it doesn't exist.
I've been with plenty of judges and plenty of lawyers. When you come to theoreticals, they enjoy the theoretical. They enjoy it. I'm not going to argue what they enjoy. We all enjoy theoreticals, but it's not. It comes with a warning. Do not assume that this can be applied to real life. These are theoreticals. So that's why when you can have that discussion, and I think most rabbis enjoy those discussions, but they also know that if the person's asking, there's a reason the person's asking, and they're going to use that.
They're couching it in terms of.
They're couching it. So that's why you want to be careful with that.
A good fodder for a shiur that they could give a class. Right? If there's general interest, hey, I'll give a class, right?
Right. We'll give a class, and even from the class, you have to be careful because some people will walk away and say, "Oh, I heard this in the class," and therefore the rabbi said it, and the rabbi did he mean it, but it was theoretical.
And this is why I over the many years, and being acquainted with so many rebbeim that teach in one of the schools, I ask them a question. That's a question for your rabbi.
Right. No, exactly, because it's a practical question.
I teach. That's all I do. I don't make rulings.
So practical. Once you go practical, people don't like it. Theoretical, we like, but again, you have to be careful with the theoreticals because people like to go long distance with those theoreticals.
They'll draw their own extrapolations.
Right, and that's you have to be careful with. So. That's why you always have to couch in terms as purely theoretical. I would not go and use this in practical halacha. Okay? And then as a Bavi, beware. So Amalei Rav Zera the Rav Shimon. So Rav Zera once said to Rav Shimon, "Alochachinhu mar lahani devei reish galuta." The master should reprove these officials of the house of the exilarch. Again, we're back to the exilarch for their transgressions. So Amalei, lo mekabel. Rav Shimon said to him, reply, they do not accept reproof from me. What do you want me to do? They don't accept it. So Amalei afal gav de lo mekabel lo chinumar. Rav Zera therefore said to Rav Shimon, even though they do not accept it, the master should nonetheless reprove them. Why? So Rav Zera urged Rav Shimon to rebuke the errant officials because there was some chance that they might listen. However, were it known for certain that the transgressors will not listen, one should not reprove them, but should follow the principle, let them be. It is better that they sin unintentionally than sin intentionally. Famous rule,
When it comes to that, when it comes to knowing whether or not you can have influence over somebody, and then saying like, this person rules for himself, I don't have influence over these people, they won't listen to me. The other person says, but you should still try because they might. Well, now you just brought in the whole they might. So you're always guilty because if you don't, you can say I'm not responsible for these people, they won't listen to me. But then you can always bring in they might, in which case all their sins are yours now.
I hear. Let's continue with the story and see what happens. It's a fair thing to do. Because you're correct. You are correct. With your analysis of it is correct. If you say that you might be able to, if we've stopped the story there, right? So then you're correct. If somebody said the person says I would have no influence, but you could. Oh, so you're right. It's a setup for disaster, because you can. And if I do say the other, by the way, the interest. Okay, so now I hold I can't do anything. You hold I might be able to do something, right? Now here's what happens. If I tell them, then they're transgressing on purpose and will get a much worse punishment than if I don't tell them and they just transgress accidentally. So I hold it's a vadai, a certainty that they won't listen. You hold that it's a suffix, maybe they will listen. When you have a vadai, a certainty, and a suffix, a doubt, certainty always wins. That would be the answer. Okay? In all cases, by the way, if I have a certainty, and that was what Yehuda said to Yaakov, when he was trying to convince his dad to send Binyamin along with him, right? She says, Dad, certainly, if we don't go, we're going to die. If we do go, it's true that Binyamin could be taken. But that's a suffix. That's a doubt. So we have a vadai, a certainty, and a suffix. Vadai always wins over suffix. So that would be the answer. It's true. I could always say might, but that's your answer, okay? So whenever you have that in mind. By the way, when you're driving and was like this, and the guy says, come on, we have to go. And you say, I can't go faster because you could slip. Yeah, but you may not. Certainty first is a question. You go slow and you take your time. Understand? These rules that we learn, believe me, they can bring you through life. Okay? And they do bring you through life. So, so he says, he should nevertheless reprove him. Fine. Why should he do that? The Amar of Acha bara Michanina, for Rabbi Acha, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, Me'olam lo yatzta mida tova mi pi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chazer balara. A good decree never issued from the mouth of the Holy One, blessed be He, and then he retracted it for bad. Chutz midavar zeh. Except in this manner of failing to rebuke, which is mentioned, he explains, which is mentioned in the following verses, where Hashem issued a favorable decree and then retracted in order to punish those who failed to rebuke. So he says, Dechtiv, as it says, V'yomer Hashem elav avor b'toch ha'ir b'toch ha'Yushalayim. As it says, Hashem said to the angel, pass through the city, through Yushalayim, v'hidvita tav al mitzchot ha'anashim, and mark the letter tav on the foreheads of the people, I'll call of the foreheads of the people who sigh and moan over all the abominations that are done in its midst. And those are the righteous. So he explains. Hashem said to Gabriel, the Malach, the angel Gabriel. So, Lech or Rishom al Mitzchan shel tzadikim tav shel dayo. Go and mark a tav of ink, the letter tav, okay, of ink on the foreheads of the righteous. Shelo yishu tu behem malachei chabala, so that the angels of destruction that I wish to send upon the cities shall have no power over them. Bial Mitzchan shel Rishayim tav shel dam. And on the excuse me, and on the forehead of the wicked, a tav of blood. And he said, Tosfot points out that the righteous mentions only the righteous that are marked with the tav. How does Rav Acha know that the wicked were also marked? So Tosfot answers that Rav Acha derived it logically. However, Tosfot did not explain that logic. Maharsha explains questions. Why it was even necessary to mark the wicked. Once the righteous were set apart for salvation, it was visually obvious to the angels who deserved destruction. The Maharsha explains that it was necessary to mark both the righteous and the wicked because there existed a third group, the intermediates, the Beinonim, that deserved neither salvation nor total destruction. This middle category is intimated in the Gemara below, where Hashem says the two groups to be marked, these are completely righteous and these completely wicked. Marsha also finds an allusion to the wicked in the verse which mentions the people who sigh and moan. That is, the righteous will sigh about the abominations committed on Yerushalayim, and the wicked will moan after their deaths. So, okay, let's get back to the story. So they put the tav of blood over the wicked, so that the angels of destruction will have power over them. Amra midat adin lifnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. So now the trait of justice, the attribute of strict justice before Hashem, said, Ribbonu Shalom, man nishtanu elim elim. Master of the universe, what is the difference between both these groups? You have the righteous and you have the wicked. What's the difference? So Amalei, Halu Tzadikim Gemorim, Halu Rishon Gemorim. Hashem replied, what do you mean, what's the difference? These are completely righteous, these are completely wicked. So Amrulo, Amazanav, so the strict justice said before Hashem, Rabbon Shalom, Master of the universe, Hayabi Adam L'chobelo Michu. They had the power to protest against the sinners and they didn't. So Amalei, Amala, Galoy Yadu Lefanai She'im Yichu Behem Lo Yikablu Behem. And Hashem said to Midat Hadin, the strict justice, it was revealed and known to me that even if they would have protested, the latter would not have accepted any reproof from them. So what are you bothering me for? Hashem is speaking like this. It's interesting. Hashem is having a conversation with Hashem, because Midat Hadin is still Hashem. So, but the attribute of justice is an interesting midrash we have going on here. So Amar Lefanav, so the strict justice then said before Hashem, Im Lefanecha Galoi Lehem Migaloi. If it's revealed before you, you're God. That's one thing. It's a vadai for you. But is it revealed to the righteous? Did they know? They didn't know. So that's the point. He said, since the righteous were not certain that the rebuking would meet deaf ears, they erred in failing to rebuke. In Midrash Tanchuma, the attribute of strict justice adds, therefore the righteous should have protested against the transgressors. It was incumbent upon the righteous to be reviled for the sanctification of your name, to accept upon themselves and to suffer the beatings from the Jewish people, as the prophet suffered at the hands of the Jewish people. For Jeremiah suffered many troubles from the Jewish people, and likewise Isaiah, as is written, I gave over my body to those who administered blows, and my cheeks to those who plucked up hairs, and also to the other prophets. And so you have the Rambam, the Haggadah Maimonides, who cites the Midrash as proof that if there is a chance of being effective, one must protest until the transgressor strikes him. Okay, so again, it has to be that there's a chance. If I know for certain that the person is not going to listen, I don't do anything. That is better he does it by accident. On the other hand, if there's a chance, even a chance, I have to judge that the person will listen. I have to say something. Okay? Now, how far do you have to go? Do you have to actually go, as the Midrash says, until the guy strikes you? Okay, I wouldn't say you have to go that far. We're not at that level today. But again, to make a point of saying, in a nice manner, by the way, you should never do it in a harsh approach, which again is very difficult. Most people, when they tell you off, that's the expression, they tell you off. Okay, they're not trying to educate you. They're not trying to bring you along. Yeah. They're trying to show how bad you are as comparison to them. That's all they're doing. Which is why today we said the art of rebuke is dead. We don't have it.
In other words, if you know for sure that the guy knows right from wrong, then there's, and then you're trying to convince him. So I guess you should be stronger. But if he doesn't really have the concept.
More than that, if you know that the person's not, in ours, we have a history with certain people that...
he's gone off the derech. I mean, he knows, but he's gone off the derech.
Even if he hasn't gone off the derech. Even if he hasn't. It could be anybody who's on the derech, but they're not willing to listen because they learned they went to some class, or they heard some YouTube rabbi and say something, and they decided that YouTube rabbi knows more than their rabbi. Now, the difference between me, YouTube rabbi, and rabbi on ground is rabbi on ground knows you and knows what you need to have and judges for you. Okay? I can't judge for somebody in Argentina. I can give a global statement, but it's certainly not, tell the person whether or not he should endanger his life to go to Mina to say Kaddish. It's not what kind of nut about it be? Or to say, or to issue an edict about abortion, or which people love to do these days. But I wouldn't. You can't do that. It has, every single case is specific. So again, but because they read that, and when the case came out in New York, that they could kill the kid after he was born, or whatever the case was. I forget whatever the whole fourth, late term, whatever the Michigasses that are, and in Virginia, even after the kid's born, you can let him drop dead. Right. It doesn't look like, like the color of his hair, kill him too. Okay. Now, obviously, that's taken way out of context. Okay. And I'm sure they didn't say that at all. But that's how the internet put it. But like I said, I'm not going to start adjudicating those cases via the internet. Okay. Or giving a share on that, giving a class and saying this is practical halacha. But somebody comes into those places and they hear it or they read an article and they decide, I know better than everybody out there. Okay? That's what I'm saying. Those sort of people, they're on the derech, they're on the way, they're totally from. But they're not going to listen. So you avoid that sort of an argument. You just, what's the use of the rebuke? Sometimes the best rebuke is to walk away. You know? So, somebody said something here, and I said, "Oh, you're getting halachic. I'm out of here. I'm not interested. I'm not going to get into that discussion. Nobody here is able to argue abortion in this town. Nobody in this town is able to argue. We don't have the facts on the ground. Okay, that's for the big boys. That's for a rabbi first. That's not for a rabbi like me." Or for anybody in this town. Nobody's going to take that upon themselves. We have a problem taking on Nida. No, okay, what about something else, please? Okay, but so that's what it'll be. Okay, and we'll have to stop there. My pleasure.